Welcome to day 17 of our scripture reading and encouragement. Today we're going to cover Genesis 44 and 45, as well as Matthew 15, verses 1 through 20. As we jump into Genesis here, Joseph has invited his brothers to eat, but they still don't know who he is. And after they eat, Joseph puts them to the test. He sneaks his silver cup into Benjamin's sack of grain and sends them back, and sends his messenger. He's put them in a trap. He's tricking them. And I think the purpose of this was just to test them to see where they were. These are the same brothers that 20 some odd years ago had, out of their jealousy for Joseph, they were ready to kill him. And then they end up selling him off. And so he's got to see if they've changed. And the cool thing here is that when when the cup is caught in Benjamin's sack, in his grain sack, and they bring him back and bring all the brothers back in front of Joseph, Judah stands up and he basically says, "Take me. We can't do this to my father. We've already hurt him by losing his other son. Take me. Send Benjamin back." And I think at this time Joseph saw their hearts had changed. They weren't the same brothers. They weren't the same men that had sold him into slavery 20 years earlier. And he breaks down and just weeps over them and tells them who he is. And then it results in Pharaoh finding out Joseph's brothers have come, and Pharaoh sends for Jacob and all the family and gives them wagons and grain and all kinds of things to get them back. In this story, I said yesterday we didn't know exactly how many years. It was 20 plus years, and I think we get our answer today because Joseph said we're 2 years into the famine. 5 more years to go. So that would have put us at 22 years. 13 years, Joseph sold into slavery to the time he ends up being the right-hand man, so to speak, of Pharaoh. 7 years of prosperity puts it at 20 years, and 2 years in the famine would be 22 years. So 22 years after his brothers have sold him into slavery, he finally gets to admit to his brothers who he is. And I guess my question to you, this is a challenge today. How would you respond? How would you respond to someone who's hurt you? People often hurt us and they put us in positions that we shouldn't be in. And we've talked in previous days how God can use those situations to get us to the place he wants us. But how do we respond when people have hurt us and we get the opportunity for them to come back into our lives? And in this case, Joseph is the one keeping him alive. He responded with grace, with mercy. He wept over them. And he said, "Don't blame yourselves. It wasn't you who did evil. It was God who sent me here." So I just want to challenge you as you process through when someone hurts you. Are we responding out of blame, guilt, shame? Are we putting that on them? Or are we responding out of true grace, knowing that God has a purpose for everything he does? So I hope you're encouraged by that as we finish up this story of Joseph exposing himself to his brothers. We jump over into Matthew and we see pretty quickly that the Pharisees are once again trying to trap Jesus. They would often ask him questions and they're trying to trap him. They're trying to get him to say an answer that goes against the law, so they can claim blasphemy and have him put to death. They're scared to death of the power he's going to gain. And there's something that Jesus does, and he does it here in Matthew chapter 15, but he does it so often through the Gospels. When he's asked a tough question, when he knows the heart of the question that's being asked to him, he knows they're trying to trap him, he returns the question with a question. And that's something I want to encourage you to do. When people come at you and they ask you, often you are asked questions, or when you're asked questions, you know that there's an ulterior motive. You know they're trying to trap you. And so many times we get defensive and we start trying to explain, or maybe we get angry that we're having to explain. But I'm going to tell you a very effective thing. Do what Jesus did. When someone asks you a question, flip the question back around to them and ask them a question back. It'll often change the dynamic of the conversation. But as Jesus, they're basically trying to trap Jesus with, why aren't your disciples doing the ceremonial hand washing? They want to make sure they don't put anything unclean into them. And Jesus is saying, you know what, you people, you honor me with what you say. You honor me with your lips, but you do not honor me with your hearts. Your hearts are far from me. And Jesus is telling the Pharisees and the people that are listening and his disciples, you know, I don't really care about what you put into your body. It doesn't matter what you put into your body. That's not what defiles you. What defiles you is the evilness that's built up in your heart. And he says a couple of things. He says specifically evil thoughts, murder, adultery, all sexual immorality, theft, lying, and slander. These are things that defile you. These are the things that are in your heart, and they are exposed when they come out of your mouth. So Jesus is saying, look, guys, you got it backwards. Quit worrying about what you're taking in that defiles you. Worry about what's in your heart already that's coming out through your mouth that defiles you. And he called them hypocrites. The hypocrisy that you're living your life by. You're saying that you honor me, but you're not. Your hearts are not right. You say you're honoring God, I should say. That's what they were saying. They were honoring God. But their actions and their words showed differently. So the encouragement I want you to get today is try to respond to people who've hurt you the same way Joseph did, with grace and mercy. It doesn't mean letting them run all over you. He did test them to make sure they had changed. And if that person has proven to you that they've changed, they're not going to walk all over you if they've truly changed. So show them the same grace that Joseph showed his brothers. And then don't worry so much about what you take in. I know this doesn't affect us as much today because we don't live by those constraints of the law. But really the challenge or the encouragement is to watch what comes out of our mouth. Is it dirty jokes? Is it evil? Is it talking about people? Is it anger, sexual jokes? Whatever it is, what's coming out of your mouth? Pay attention to what's coming out of your mouth, because that shows what's in the heart. And all throughout Jesus' teaching, that's the thing he's most concerned about, is you changing the things in your heart and only letting good things come out of your mouth. Hope you're encouraged today, and I hope you have a great day.